All right, let's talk about financial freedom. For 2025, we're going to build a clear, actionable roadmap to get you there. We're tapping into the wisdom of people who've actually done it, self-made millionaires and top financial minds, to create a plan you can literally start on today.
Does this feel a little too real? Mark Tilbury, a guy who dropped out of school at 16 to make wooden trash cans for $2 an hour, felt this deep in his bones every single day. He just knew if he didn't find a way out, he'd end up just like his coworkers, completely soulless. It's a feeling a lot of us know, right?
So how do you actually escape? How do you get off that hamster wheel and start building a life where you're not just a slave to your job or your bills?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down right now. We're going to walk you through a 4-pillar framework that gives you a real structured plan to build lasting wealth. Okay, let's dive in. First things first, we need to know what we're actually aiming for. What does freedom really look like when we're talking about money?
Finance expert Scott Galloway just nails it with this definition. It's not about being rich like you see in the movies. True wealth is when the money your investments make for you is more than what you spend to live. The real goal isn't a Lamborghini, it's an absence from anxiety. Imagine that.
With that goal locked in, let's get to our first pillar. You can't hit a target you can't see, right? So we need to turn this abstract dream of freedom into a cold, hard number.
So what's your number? Seriously, how much money would you need coming in passively every single month to feel totally secure, to do the things you actually want to do without constantly worrying? That's what we call your freedom figure.
And figuring it out is way simpler than you might think. It's just 3 steps. First, dream a little. Write down all the annual costs for the lifestyle you really want. Add it all up to get your target yearly income. Then, you just multiply that number by 25. Boom! That's the amount you need invested to safely live off the returns.
So, for example, Mark Tilbury crunched the numbers for a pretty comfortable life. Nice car, travel, city living, and it came out to just over 75 grand a year. Multiply that by 25, and his freedom figure is just under 1.9 million. Now I know, seeing a number like that can be a gut punch. But remember, this isn't about saving it all at once. This is the target your investments need to hit. Now that's a real destination.
Okay, let's move on to the second pillar. A destination is great, but you need an engine to get there. This is all about cranking up your earning power. And here, our experts actually have 2 different schools of thought. Scott Galloway says, forget the side hustle. Pour all that extra energy into your main career and become the absolute best. But Mark Tilbury and Dan Martell argue that having multiple income streams is what creates true stability. The key thing here is they're both right. The focus path is awesome if you love what you do and see a clear path to the top. The side hustle path is perfect if you want to spread out your risk or turn a passion into cash. You've got to decide which engine fits you.
Now, if you do go the side hustle route, you have to focus on high-value skills. Entrepreneur Dan Martell points to stuff like coding, video editing, copywriting, sales, and AI automation. These are things businesses are desperate for and will pay top dollar for. It's the fast track to boosting that income engine.
Earning more money is only half the equation, though. Pillar 3 is all about optimizing your fuel, making sure you're not just burning through the cash you work so hard for. This is about spending smarter, not just cheaper.
Scott Galloway calls this the Stoic approach. It's simple. Figure out what you can control and what you can't. You can't control the stock market, but you can absolutely control what you spend your money on. You cut ruthlessly on the stuff that doesn't actually make you happy, so you can spend freely on what does. A perfect example of this is car hacking. Forget that shiny new car with a $700 monthly payment. Instead, buy a quality used car that's already taken its biggest appreciation hit. That's that huge drop in value in the first few years. You can drive it for a few years and sell it for pretty close to what you paid for it.
Next up is brand hacking. Studies show you can save a ton just by grabbing the generic or store brand version of things like cereal or medicine. Let's be honest, most of the time you can't even tell the difference, but your bank account sure can.
And finally, the most powerful hack of them all, house hacking. Instead of just renting and throwing money away, buy a duplex or a house with an extra room. You live in one part and you rent out the other. That rental income can cover most, if not all, of your mortgage. You're basically living for free while building equity in an asset. It's a game changer. All right, let's get to our 4th and final pillar. And honestly, this is where the magic really happens. This is where you finally stop working for your money and you start making your money work for you.
The single biggest advantage you have, especially when you're young, is time. Like Scott Galloway says, life goes by in a flash. The power of compound interest can turn a small, consistent investment today into an absolute fortune down the road. It feels like magic, but really, it's just math and time doing their thing.
But as your money starts to grow, how do you protect it? Galloway calls diversification your financial Kevlar. He learned the hard way not to put all his eggs in one basket. By never putting more than, say, 3% of your net worth into a single investment, you make sure that no single failure can ever wipe you out. It's your armor.
And getting started can be super simple. A great beginner portfolio could look something like this. Put the vast majority, like 95%, into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. That just means you're buying a tiny piece of the 500 biggest companies in the US. You're instantly diversified. Then, if you're feeling a little adventurous, you can take a small, calculated risk with the other 5% on something like crypto.
When you put all these pillars together, you start to move along a clear path. The Wealth Workshop maps it out in these 7 stages. You start at stage 1, dependency. Then you hit self-sufficiency, where you're covering your own bills. Next is stability, where you're actually saving. Then security, with a solid emergency fund. Then flexibility, when your investments can cover some basics. Soon you hit financial independence, and finally financial abundance.
So, there it is. You have the definition, you have the 4 pillars, and you have the map. The only thing left is to take that first step. So looking at everything we just covered, what's your first step going to be? Calculating your number? Learning a new skill? Setting up that first investment? The journey to freedom starts right now.